Maisel, had a shame little sin than yingale, Billy a bubba boydum bubbyum but you bist meine Ruchale, mein Masel, mein Bruchale, mein Kleine, mein schöne Maisel.
First, I want to congratulate you on your fifth Emmy nomination.
Oh, thank you.
Very, very fantastic. You have, for everybody listening, you have 4 wins already in a row for Boardwalk Empire, which is a record.
That's right, yeah.
That's really impressive.
That, yeah, that was fun.
I'd love to hear about your background and where you got your break into the industry.
Well, I was a theater major in college, theater and art. I went to a little college in Oklahoma, and we actually entered a play in the what was it called? The Intercollegiate College. I'm trying to think what the award was called, but there was a college theater festival that took place every year in Washington D.C. and there were plays that were produced all over the country at colleges, and there was a state winner, and then the state winner went on to a regional winner. Regional winner went on to the national, and the national was held at the Kennedy Center. After we hang up, I could look this up and get the information to you. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but the college that I went to in Oklahoma, a little college in southern Oklahoma, we did Of Mice and Men, and I designed sets for it. And it went to this festival in Washington, D.C., and there I was offered an assistantship and a scholarship to do my master's work and get an MFA in theater at Tulane University. So I did that, and that was kind of what got everything started. And I also won an award from the US ITT, which was the United States Institute of Theater Technology, I think, at the time, but that's been a long time ago. I'm old. So, that was back in about 1971 or 72, I guess it was.
Okay.
And so I then went on and got a master's degree at Tulane University and graduated in 1974. Left that job. After I graduated, I moved to New York to take a job, in Stony Brook at the State University of New York at Stony Brook, and as a design teacher in the theater department at Stony Brook, and that is kind of how I got started. While I was at the State University at Stony Brook, I took there's a union exam in New York City that's required to get into the union in order to do theater, which is what I imagined doing, was theater. And then so I took that, got into the union in New York. It's United Scenic Artists, Local 829. And then, it's funny, I used to work with a producer who said these careers aren't linear careers, and it's sort of true, So I worked with somebody who knew somebody who worked at Saturday Night Live in New York, and they were looking for an additional art director at Saturday Night Live. I interviewed for that. I got the job, and that was the end of my working in theater, pretty much. But so I did television, and I moved on to doing movies. Left Saturday Night Live after I believe it was 6 years that I was there, and started doing movies. Maybe it was 4 years. I guess I was at Saturday Night Live for 4 years.
Yeah, I was looking at it, and it said 4 years. Yeah, assistant scenic designer and associate scenic designer. It's funny. I just interviewed Eugene Lee last week.
Oh, you did? Oh, wow.
Which was absolutely a dream. He has a lot of stories.
Yeah.
Great.
That's great. I haven't seen Eugene since I left there, and it was great working with him. It was just such a learning experience, just being around him and working with him. So that was a great first job to have in professional. Yeah. So he's I guess he's still at Saturday Night Live, isn't he?
He's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's plugging along.
Yep. So that was my first professional experience, is working there, and it was great.
Yeah, you've got some really great films under your belt too. Which, I mean, some of my very favorites, like A League of Their Own and Milk, and it's impressive. I'm curious. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I was actually. Well, go ahead and ask the question that you were going to ask.
Well, I was going to kind of jump a little bit. I'm curious about when you kind of made a move from film to largely television, and
that's actually what I was going to go on to.
Hey, there we go.
I was after I did Eat, Pray, Love. I was introduced to Lee Daniels, and Lee Daniels was at that point going to direct Selma, and we were prepping that, and it was kind of up and running about 4 times the year after I finished Eat, Pray, Love, and the company that was producing it, and I don't remember, it was more than just, it was Pathé, I think, was the company that was one of the companies producing it, and they kept trying to hit a certain number before they would greenlight the project, and every line producer that came in to do a budget for the show gave them a higher number than they were interested in doing for the movie, and then the movie, we would be prepping, and then it would get shut down. Then they'd bring another producer back in to do a budget, and we'd be up and prepping again, and it would get shut down again. And that happened maybe about 4 times, and this had started early in the year, and finally, somewhere around the end of summer, I got a call. They were looking for somebody to begin the second season of Boardwalk Empire. And so I went in and met with Tim Van Patten and Gene Kelly, I believe. Gene Kelly is the producer in that. He just did Westworld, Gene. And but I met with them, and they liked me, and they offered me the job pretty much on the spot. I called the producer who was doing Selma, and I said to her, this has been up 4 times and shut down 4 times, and I've been offered this job, and what should I do? And she said, take the job. And then the next day they shut it down again, and then of course it wasn't made for another couple of years.
Yes.
But that's kind of the process. That's not unusual in the movie industry, and I was just kind of frustrated with it at that point. And I thought, you know what, television is changing and getting better, and everybody's doing television, and I should give it a try. So, and I've loved it ever since. And that's been, 9 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, you have a lot of television in the last decade, and that seems to be your milieu now. But you've been very successful at it.
Yeah, I mean, I won an Emmy for my first season at Boardwalk Empire, and then every season after that. But that was for work I did after I turned 60. And I've won 4 Emmys now, nominated for a 5th time, an Art Directors Guild Award.
Yeah.
Also, I turned 60, and sometimes, you have to just hang in there. And so it's been good, and I've enjoyed it. And, yeah. And I've been fortunate because I've worked on sort of bigger, television projects at A League of Their Own. Boardwalk Empire, and then Vinyl, which sadly only lasted 1 season, and then now Mrs. Maisel. So
yes, and definitely we're here to talk about some Mrs. Maisel because it's a heavily nominated show. You are a part of that. It's I just rewatched the season again, and I'm always amazed at just the breadth of what is involved in this show, and quite in particular the production design, which is so meticulous.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, it never ends. It's hilarious. I was rewatching the episode that you're nominated for, and Alex Borstein is going through Rachel Brosnahan's apartment, and she's,
oh yeah,
where the hell are we? What is this, fucking Versailles? And it's just because it just never ends. It just keeps going and going, and that's actually something that fascinates me in your design. Does the shooting style of the cinematographer and that much like walking and talking and moving around, how much impact does that have on your design and how you design something, or does it come the other direction?
It kind of all happens at once. The truth is, I started designing that. I had never worked with David Mullen, and although I think it was Eric, our other DP, that did that particular episode, but David Mullen did the pilot, and I'd never worked with David before, and we sort of designed the set before David and I started working together. But it really, I've told other interviewers, that it's all kind of in the script. It starts with the script, and that's, people often ask the question, how did you decide on the color palette and so on and so forth, and I finally just started saying that it's in the script, and it's kind of true. I kind of don't know how to answer questions like that because, I look at a paint chart and I pick a color, and that's,
sure.
I said to my agent, she was talking about how much she enjoys the show and how much reaction they've gotten, and I said, I don't quite understand it because there's no big overarching vision of what the show should look like for me. It's just been one choice at a time. And she said, well, they've been very good choices. So, so that's kind of what it is. It's, an example of that is in season 2, there's a scene that we shot a couple of months ago that, sometimes when I talk to interviewers, everybody imagines, I think, that it's a little more scientific than it is, and it's really more of an art than it is a science. There's a certain amount of science involved in it, but science is a little more orderly than art. Art is pretty messy, and that's our process in general is pretty messy, I think. It's, I look at a paint chart and I pick a color, and the wardrobe designer looks at fabrics and she picks color. And, there was one scene this year where we had a problem with the floor in the location and weren't quite sure how to solve it because the location owner wouldn't let us refinish the floor, which we were prepared to do. It was pretty badly damaged. So I decided to do wall-to-wall carpet, which was fairly common in the period, and so I picked, the set decorator brought me the book with all the different carpet samples in it. And I picked a color, which was a pink, and when we shot the scene, the room is white walls and a pink floor, and Rachel's has on a jacket that almost exactly matches the floor, and we never talked about it, and it looks like such a conscious choice, and it looks so great, I think, in the frame, and sometimes it just happens,
a happy accident.
Well, and it's just sort of, as I say, it's kind of, we're all bringing our own interpretations in our department to what we're reading on the page, and sometimes it's just on the page, and we're all following that. It didn't say anything about doing pink, but that's what we both chose for the scene. So
what would have been your inspiration to choose that color? I know you said that you've been asked to that, but I get curious about that. Just looking at Midge's apartment colors versus her parents' apartment colors, and if that's a conscious character choice.
Yeah, when is this coming out? This thing that you're writing, or I'm not supposed to give anything away about the second season, but
you don't. No, you don't have to. We can even talk just about the first season and your nominated episode. Yeah.
It was something that kind of went. It was a choice that we made that kind of went with the writing. It was about something that should have been appealing to Midge that wasn't, basically. But that was. When you see, but I can't really talk too much about that, so we should probably limit it more to the first season.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm just saying to you, sometimes these things, and a lot of people, writers, want to know, I think it's imagined that we have these big meetings with, where we're presenting colors and fabrics and stuff, and you certainly do that sometimes, and we did that more on the pilot. But once you get started, you kind of just, you want to know where the start is and where the finish line is, and that's when you head toward that.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, just it all just kind of comes together in a way without really talking that much about it. So yeah.
How much is fact checking for accuracy of a time period a part of your decision making?
Oh, that's a big part. It's a big part, and it's not even just fact checking. It's seeing images. We have thousands and thousands of pages. I don't know, at this point, maybe into second season, maybe hundreds of thousands of pages of research. On Boardwalk, I remember telling some interviewer that we had over 1 million pages of research, and I think we probably did by the time that season 5 had finished.
Wow!
But every scene that's written that takes, whether it's a gas station or a nightclub or you name it, a fortune teller, which is in season 1, we end up with stacks of research from that, and we have someone in our department who does that, and that's and we base that comes from all sorts of sources, magazines, books, but it also comes from the Library of Congress. We have a lot of different sources, and product brochures from the period, plumbing catalogs, electrical catalogs, Sears and Roebuck catalogs, you name it. And you just have that stuff at hand, and when pages of script come out and you have to shoot that scene 5 days later, you have the research at hand. And at some point, you kind of immerse yourself in a period like this, and you start to have a good sense. You have just a feeling for whether something's period or not. So it becomes, it's all, the work itself, I think, is very intuitive, but it's a very intuitive process. So again, it's not always, it's an art, not a science. It's messy and intuitive, and you go on an idea or a hunch, or you try something that you've never tried before, or, you know, and it, if you're good and if you're lucky, it works. And even though you may not know what's going to be the final result, you're hoping that you've made the right choice, and it's good when you do. So
yeah, I think that definitely shows with Mrs. Maisel, between sets and dress locations. And I'm curious, what is are the deciding factors between something that needs to be a dress location versus a totally original set?
Well, I mean, an example of that is in Maisel is from episode 1 to episode 2. Episode 1, we have the pilot. We had very little prep time, and there really just wasn't time to build the families. And there were 2 apartments. There was the father and mother's apartment, and there was Midge's apartment. We didn't have time to build those, among other, or the budget for that. I mean, the pilots, you know, are not budgeted. Obviously, there's not as much money for one episode as there is for 8 or 10 episodes when a series is greenlit for the season. And so you can amortize costs. If you know that an apartment, for instance, is going to appear in 8 episodes, you can spend more on that. You can amortize that cost over 8 episodes, but you don't have that when you're doing a pilot generally. You know, sometimes what you're looking for doesn't exist in real life and you have to build it. But in this case, you know, there are plenty of wonderful old Upper West Side apartments around that were here in the 50s and are still here today. And so for the pilot, we used a location on the Upper West Side, and we used 2 different apartments in the same line in the building. And they both just were kind of perfect for the characters. The one for Midge was a different apartment than the one for the parents, and there's a slight difference in the floor plan, but not much. And so for the pilot, we used that location. When we went to series, it was more expensive to go back to that location time and time again than it would be to work on stage, and just impractical, and you have a lot of obstacles when you're working on location, just among other things, the availability of the location on the dates that you needed, and so on and so forth. So, so we ended up building those apartments on stage, and the solution, we're very limited in the stage space that's available in New York because there's a lot of production in New York right now. But we have a nice one nice stage at Steiner Studios. We had 2 smaller ones this season, but there was room for the one apartment, and then to have built both apartments would have been pretty much twice as much money to do. But we knew that Midge's apartment was only going to appear in 3 episodes. I believe it was 4 episodes, I'm sorry. So we built the location. We built the set. Shot it as Midge's apartment first, with the changes that were required to make it like the location that we shot. And then we had a 3-week period of time when we turned that around to become the parents' apartment, which is still standing on stage today. So that was how we solved that problem. But that's part of what a designer does too, is helps figure out how to do. I said I was on a panel at the Paley Center, and they were asking questions about all this stuff, and I said that, you know, that for every movie or every TV show or whatever, the process is kind of the same. you decide what you need to do, and then you do it. So, that's true. And the doing part, whether you build, whether you shoot on location, how you build, how you shoot it, what you shoot first, so on and so forth, that's all part of the decisions on how you accomplish what you need to do and how you get to a certain goal or get to a certain look. So there's a certain amount of, it's got architecture involved, it's got interior decoration, it's got movie scheduling and shooting and all of those things involved as well. And sometimes I like to sort of think of the actors too, and the director. I mean, what if I were directing? What would I want? What if I were in the set as an actor? How would I want this and arranged and so on and so forth? Somebody at some point in some interview referred to me as somebody they had asked about me to get a quote. Somebody referred to me as a method production designer. I don't know. But I do spend a lot of time on the set, walking in and out the doors, and sort of, if there's a change that needs to be made, I try to make it and get it right before the first day of shooting. Make sure that, the doors are swinging the right way, and I'm always imagining shooting. I mean, in a room, for instance, I'm imagining somebody walking over to the closet, doing the action that's required to do, and how that will look on film. So it's not just theoretical, and it's not just on paper, but it's in it's in a built, realized kind of environment. So.
How's been working on a streaming network like Amazon been different than other shows and cable?
Well, I don't. For me, I don't see much difference actually. Amazon's been great to work with, and as I recall, I mean, maybe there was a staggered date on the HBO show of the delivery of the various episodes, but again, we sort of have a time where we're starting and then we finish and we shoot everything. That's not necessarily true of all shows. I mean, some shows I know shut down for a little bit for additional writing and then they start up again. I don't know how that would affect my work or my department, but so far things have been pretty consistent, pretty much the same in my experience. It's just that Amazon releases it all at once. HBO would release it weekly. But in terms of when we have to finish a project and finish our work, it's pretty much the same. At least that's been my experience so far.
Okay. What keeps you going in this business after 40 years? There's not a lot of businesses that can really sustain people that well.
Well, my career's been better since I turned 60 than it was before. I mean, I did some nice work on a few mediocre movies that took me through a lot of my career, but it wasn't really until I kind of Eat, Pray, Love was Milk was a great project. I mean, that was kind of a turning point in my career, but I was already 56 or 50. When was that released? 90.
2008 for Milk.
Sorry, 2008. So I was I was 58 when it was released. So, and that was a high point really of the work that I did on movies. I mean, A League of Their Own was a great project to do, but that was my first movie. Then nothing after that quite measured up to A League of Their Own until Milk, and so I just kind of plugged away and never gave up, and that's kind of what I think you have to do, if you enjoy the work, and I always enjoyed the work, so that I just kind of hung in there, and then now I'm not I'll be 68 in about 2 weeks, and I'm enjoying working more than I ever have. So I'm not interested in stopping. And that Eugene probably said something similar to that. But,
that's so funny because I was just going to say that is exactly what he said. He had gotten advice from his father. Once your job is not fun anymore, why do it?
Right. I believe he's 10 years older than I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is.
So yeah. So I don't know what I would do. So right now. So as long as I'm enjoying it and keep getting nominated for Emmys, I'll keep doing it.
Exactly. I don't see why you would stop. Bill, thank you so much for chatting with me today, and
thank you.
I wish you the very best of luck at the Emmys next month. I have a good feeling, so I wish you the best.
Well, it's a lot of really great nominees there, and but the nice thing about my category, I always tell people it's the Montessori school of Emmy categories. It's a scored category, unless that's changed recently. But each episode is screened and scored. I don't know what the various points are that get scored, but I believe the number is 95. And if the episode scores 95 or higher, you get an Emmy. In theory, in that category, every nominee could win an Emmy if they were all high scoring. So that's a nice thing. That's a nice thing about that category. So it feels good to be nominated with all those other shows, and I think it's probably a little bit unusual for a comedy to be in that company, but that's you're kind of unique in that, and that's based on the length, being a 1 hour show. That's right.
Show.
It's 1 hour single camera, and a lot of comedies multiple camera and half hour. So
Thank you
Great.
so much, Bill.
Thank you so much. Yep.
Have a good day.
Okay, you too.